welcome back to Press Any Button to Continue. My name's Keith and I'm joined by my co-host Nisha. Today we're going to be talking about something that maybe you don't get to experience all that much these days. Another trip back in time to a feeling. Do you remember it? It's called being bored. Now we have so many different responsibilities, stresses, and of course doom scrolling throughout the night that I don't think we often leave ourselves to get to that point. But there is something about being in the year 2000 on a nice summer's evening, just staring out at the window at the sunny grass with Pokemon playing in the background, wondering what you're going to do with your day. Well, we're going to find out what we're going to do with this podcast today on Press Any Button to Continue.
Keith, man, that was one of the best intros I think you've ever done. I was like, how is he going to intro this? How is he going to intro the art of being bored? And that was fucking fantastic, man. Very cool. Very cool.
That was completely improv for those who don't know.
Was it, yeah?
Oh, I don't have anything written down. That was off the top of my head. I have nothing ready for this.
That was very cool, man. That was very cool. It is such an interesting topic because it's something me and you have wanted to do for a while, is the art of being bored, because it's a lost art form. It's like renting a video, renting a movie, renting a game, that kind of thing. Being bored, well, from my experience, is something that I haven't experienced in a while because of smartphones and technology and the constant
anxiety
go of life, you know. And yeah, it's just very rare to be like, what am I going to do? What am I? Just sit there in silence and look around. But I remember the days of being a kid and just being like you said, just looking out the window and just being like, what's going on? What am I going to do today? You know, like on a weekend or on your summer holidays.
Yeah,
and you're like.
Yeah, like I remember it being like a really like peaceful thing though. Like in retrospect, look, being bored at the time was kind of terrible, but like when you leave yourself be bored for hours and hours, you eventually just like you adapt and you come up with something that really like intrigues you. And I don't know whether I have a very ADHD brain or not, but you know, there'd be things you'd like hyper focus on and you'd be like, all right, this is what I'm into, this is what I love, and then that goes away and you're like, I think just allowing yourself that like complete, like, you know, you hear the pigeons. I think what's very interesting about being bored is the sounds you hear. I think that's the first thing you notice, at least for me when I was a kid growing up.
Right.
Like you'd just be like laying on the floor like spread eagles, like starfish, just staring at the roof, just being like, what is my life? And I remember my sisters were older, so they were going out and stuff, and I remember being jealous of them, like getting to go out and do something because I was so bored. But I really feel it's like the sounds. Like I remember I think the boredom used to make me meditate without me realizing it. So I was like, I became very conscious of like, you know, my surroundings and hearing the birds or hearing like the buzz of a fridge. Or if you're in your grandmother's house, hearing that like clock that goes around. You know what I mean? There's like there's a stillness in it that I think is very, very interesting.
You're after unlocking something there, because I can remember just like laying on the couch. We used to have this like purple cord fabric couch in my mom's house, and I can remember just laying there on the couch on a sunny day. I can't remember the TV being open, but I can just remember hearing outside
the window,
because it was just a moment of calm. Yeah, the window open.
You said the TV being open.
Oh, did I? I remember that TV being open, just watching the window, my favourite movie on the window. But I remember the window being open and just the sun coming in and the feeling of calm. I can hear like cars driving around, and it's funny to think back to that ease, because obviously when you grow up and life is just chaotic and it keeps going and going and going, and sometimes you just want to put the brakes on and be like, will you just fucking chill for a second? Life, just calm down, life, just fucking relax for a second. I want to just fucking pump the brakes and chill.
Like I'd love to be bored now. Do you know, where it's like your brain goes to that like listening space rather than being like, I have to do this and then I have to do that actually, or like if I'm not doing anything, I'm not making money, and if I'm not making money, I might as well throw myself off a bridge. You know what I mean? It's like you're in such the societal like rat race, like treadmill.
Yeah. But isn't it funny? Like you said, right? When you're a kid, being bored was an awful thing, and now when me and you are having a discussion that both of us are like, I'd fucking love to be bored for a while.
And like it's funny
because I'd love to have
like,
nothing to do.
I would argue a little bit against that too, in the sense that like, yeah, I agree with that, but I actually think like, while being bored was like annoying, it ultimately usually ended up being good. Like I feel like in every scenario being bored, it's like you really, as I said, you're actually kind of like meditating. You are like focusing on your surroundings and your breath, and you're very like hyper aware because you're trying to find something to
Yeah.
catch your attention.
Yeah.
But like they're weirdly memorable. Like that feeling's very memorable because, as you said, like it doesn't really exist, or would love to be bored now. Do you know what I mean? Love to have an opportunity where there's nothing going on and I have nothing to do for 3 weeks, which means there's no stress,
Yeah.
there's no anxiety,
Yeah.
there's no I have to meet anyone or do this. Like I specifically remember, like for birthdays or I don't know, whatever it was, but if like I'd be waiting for my dad to come home, right? So like what it would be is, and I'd sit at the window for like hours, right? So I would like I'd be playing my Game Boy. And I'd be at the window and I'd be playing Pokemon for like the 4th or 5th time. So I'd be only kind of half, invested. And I remember if it was like a birthday or anything and I'd be like, oh, he must have a present for me. So like as a kid, knowing you're going to get a present, whether it might be like a Nintendo 64 or whatever it was, and the time doesn't move. Like time, seconds are hours. And I remember just looking out that window, just watching each car pass. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just that real, like, looking at the leaves, staring at them, and kind of remembering that, like, it would put me in like a really nice, calm, meditative state, even though I was bored and it was annoying. But like, there's a point that when you get over the first hard bit, and it's the same with meditation or breathing exercise in real life, like it's hard to sit still, you're fidgety, you can't get into it. But then there's a point where you like become one with the boredom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just kind of disassociate and you're like, I don't know what you are.
But it can also lead to like some sort of creative endeavor that you wouldn't have thought to do.
Totally.
Whether it's like drawing pictures or like drumming on the table and making noises, or making something mad to eat, or just going for a little walk or knocking into a friend or something like that. It always leads you down a path that you're like, well, there's no way I could have planned to have gotten here. It was only the boredom brought me here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it might push you outside your comfort zone too, where someone's like, that thing you like, we're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. Whether it's like, I don't know, it could be anything. It's fucking skydiving. I'm not saying this is a stupid example, but if you're so bored, you're like, fuck it, fine, I'll go skydiving. You know what I mean? You'll do the thing where you're like, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah. But when it comes to video games, like, what did you do when you're bored and you're just sitting there playing the game, like you're talking about Pokemon? Over and over.
You're just going through you're just going through the motions. Like it's when it's when you're playing GTA and you're driving like a real person. it's when you're stopping at the traffic lights.
Yeah,
and you're going along.
That has
to
be the biggest one, doesn't it? Like, yeah, that's the classic. Driving along. Remember in GTA, was it GTA 3 where you could do the ambulance missions and the taxi missions, trying to do it, but normally stopping at a red light, going trying to parallel park in GTA.
Yes, like, because we all thought at the time that being an adult would be so much better, and then it's like, nope, enjoy that childhood, because you try and be an adult in the games, you know what I mean? Now I want to play the missions because I'm like, fuck the adult shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
true.
A huge one as well, I think, when you hit like the depravity cavity of fucking boredom, is when you fucking just like start using cheats like out your arse. You're like, every character is like, in GTA like especially, it's like you're in a tank and you have the fly cheat, and you reverse the cannon of the tank to shoot backwards, which kept you in the air. So the fly cheat used to always like drop you down and it would fly. It was kind of like a floatier cheat. But I figured out that I was so bored that I figured out if you reverse the cannon, it give you extra projection. Right. As like a boost to keep you in the air and stuff like that.
Deadly,
so it's like those real, like, I remember, man, like, and this is the gloriness. I think this is the feeling of nostalgia sometimes. Like being in my room with like that CRT I have behind me, having my PS2 on it, and just basically there's a point where I'm sitting back like staring out the window while the game is still running. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like, you're just like sitting with your arms looking out the windowsill or something, and it's just like, or sometimes it's cozy, like we were talking about, like if it's a rainy day as well, and you have just like you can actually hear the CRT static at that point. You're so like, you're just so like sitting there like, what am I doing? Do you know? You've done everything you can in the games. And it's always like, I akin it to like, when girls, or well, not girls, like anyone can say it, but it's like, I've nothing to wear. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's like the comment, it's like, I've nothing to play. There'll be 600 games on my wall and I'll be like, I've nothing to play. Do you know?
I'm the same, man. Like the other night I started out playing Aladdin on the Super Nintendo. I bought Aladdin recently and it was a fun game, like enjoyed playing through it. And then I got to a level that I was kind of stuck on and I played it a few times and I was like, right, I think I'm getting a bit pissed off with this game, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some other games there. I tried to play A Link to the Past, and I was like, oh, I'm not really feeling it. And then I put on Illusion of Time, which is a JRPG for the SNES that I've gotten but never played. There was too much dialogue. I couldn't land on anything, and then I ended up just watching a movie. But like, I was like, I don't have nothing to play yet. There's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of video games. Or you pick up the Switch, and there's a Switch, like even the retro library of every game, or loads of games there. But I was thinking of, you know, like you're talking about driving normally in GTA, or using the cannon, and like, you know, you'll find out like quirky things. I remember one thing that I used to do for being bored was when I was playing Final Fantasy X, I think it was. So when you go into a new area in Final Fantasy, the part of the map, you know, there's like the mini map in the top right hand corner or whatever, you could only see where you have walked, and the rest of it was all shaded off. But as you walked around,
you try and colour
the
it in.
shading. And I literally would go to every area
just
and
so
just
the
walk
map, yeah,
around.
like an
just
OCD,
to walk
just
around.
completionist. Yeah.
Yeah. Just walk around the edge to remove that shading. And I remember it being so satisfying, man. And I wasn't like there to battle, to level up. I'm walking to de-shade this map area here.
I remember as well, you were telling me how like in Mario Kart you and your brother used to try and get over the line at the same time. I feel like that's another classic one. A big one I used to do, right? Actually, these are coming flooding back now. So I used to go down to West Cork with Richard, classic old mate Richard in the Discord, as you see him as. And we used to do a thing where we'd play Halo 2 together, but sure, we didn't have any online connectivity down there. So what we'd do is we'd just go into a multiplayer map with just the two of us, and we'd get into the Warthogs, which are the vehicles, and we'd keep driving them into each other. So we'd just go from one end of the map full speed, crash into them, because we wanted to see how much damage we could cause them. Like how to get all the hook cuts, like how much damage could the thing take. And we would just like do stuff like that. Or like there would be lots of things where you could break out of the map. So we'd try and look online. How do you break out of the map? You know, you'd have to jump on this box and then go out this, and you could break out of the whole level, you know what I mean, into the void. So stuff like that is like great. You know, like what do you do? Like when you get so bored that you stop playing the intended game and you make up your own game within the game. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of really
that's the thing.
When you hit that weird creative. I mean, in real life, it's funny how universal it is, because you know the way people talk about like how people have these universal experiences, like racing the raindrops down a car window. It's like, I'll pick this raindrop, you pick this raindrop, even if it's in your head.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, when you're doing parkour where like the car's driving and you're like, you think you're jumping on the boxes when the car is like driving past, or like, you know, standing on the cracks, or don't stand on the cracks and a thing. I used to pretend I was playing Mario Kart when my mum goes shopping with the trolley. I used to pretend I was in Mario Kart driving around on the trolley when I was drifting and stuff while I was doing the shopping.
I remember me and Aiden, my older brother, if we were going somewhere in the car, especially if we were like going up to the north of Ireland to visit our family, we used to have this thing called yellow rage no return. So the car number plates in the north of Ireland are yellow, and down in the south of Ireland, or the rest of Ireland, they're white. And if someone saw a yellow rage, if I saw a yellow rage, I could punch Aiden in the arm as hard and say yellow rage no return, and he couldn't punch me back. I remember when we'd be going up to Belfast, because he was, you know, he's a little bit older, he's a little bit stronger. I would be trembling because I'm like, I'm gonna get fucking annihilated here, and Aiden would be sitting there. Aiden was like Bart Simpson. He was like that fucking evil older, well, he wasn't evil. He was a very, very nice person, but he was just, you know, that mischievous older brother, should we say.
Yeah. And
then we had another one called
evil, pure evil.
I remember we had one called the mini nipple pinch. So if we saw if you drove past a mini car, you'd give them a fucking nipple cripple, you know, you pinch their nipple.
Oh yeah, they're so sore as well, man.
I fucking hate it, man. I fucking hate it.
They were so sore, like, as in crazy. Stop.
Yeah. But that was just sheer boredom, man. Oh, for fuck's sake. But if I think of another one, but I have another one with games, I remember I used to go around Ocarina of Time and just roll into every tree. You know the way you roll into a tree and sometimes like a skulltula will fall out, or rupees or something like that, and you just go dunk, roll into every tree, put a bomb at like every fucking area possible, and just go one by one. Right, now there's nothing to be blown up here. One by one, now there's nothing to be blown up here. And just try and unlock a secret that you're like, nobody has ever unlocked this before. Or is there something, is there whatever you can do? And another one, a huge one for me, man, for boredom, right, was, again, in Ocarina of Time, trying to catch the eel at the bottom of the lake in Hyrule Lake. When you can go fishing and you get is it the black eel? Because you have the sinking lure in the little fishing pond. Like, I'm talking hours. I have like so many hours of just sitting there and I never caught it. I never once caught it. And it would just sit there.
It would just tantalizingly taunt you. I think two ones that are universal, right? I think everyone has this one, which I think is hilarious. It's when you're playing Sims and you go from trying to live your best life in Sims to being a torturing devil. So what I mean by that is there's a point in Sims where like it's a life simulator and you're like, you know what, I'm bored of living the normal life. I am now going to remove all the door handles in the house and leave the oven on and see what happens. Or the funniest fucking one was you could put them all in a swimming pool and remove the ladder, so that also like just the sadistic murder sprees you would go on. Oh my god! Or just take their clothes off them on their way to work and they're like all embarrassed, just like real sadistic fucking shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But that gives you like, it gives kids like a way to play with mad fucking shit, doesn't it?
This is so interesting though, because I remember talking to a play therapist before, because I'm an art therapist, and the importance of play in the sense that like, sometimes people are like, Jesus, every time my kid's playing, fucking Action Man is fucking murdering fucking Billy Bob or whatever. And it's like, but that's like, everyone has these thoughts, and this is like the healthy way to be like, because everyone goes around, if someone like fucking cuts them off and driving, it's like, oh, I hope someone crashes into you, or you know what I mean? There's always like, it's like, whatever happens in your head is fine. There was a great rule we learned in therapy, was like, dude, everyone thinks of the worst shit, involuntarily, anything unconsciously, there's always going to be a thing of it. So like, if there's healthy ways to express your sadistic shadow side, Sims is a good way to go.
Get the Sims.
As long as you're not doing it in real life, you're good. Now, one of the cruelest, best ones that came into my mind there, right, with the art of being bored in video games. This is how you know you've hit rock bottom. And like, Jesus Christ, like, I mean, in the teenage years, it would be have 18 wanks. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in that's fucking your day. You know what I mean? It's like, this is wank 72. Fucking Jesus Christ, you're aching, you can't even get on with life. Fucking looking at the back of gaming magazines for that tiny fucking text 8007 for a picture of someone's nipples or some shit. But the one when you've hit fucking rock bottom, and we've talked about this in like one of our first episodes, is locking the waiter in Tomb Raider into the fridge. When you've lowered that fucker all the way down, that is just a classic. That's just such a renowned one. One Richard told me recently, which I thought was great when I visited him, was that the first boss, I was actually playing it today on stream, Bob-omb Battlefield. You know the big Bob-omb?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know, did he write it actually in the last week's podcast? Maybe he did actually.
Yeah, he wrote it in the best
the
boss
fact
battles.
That you could pick that guy up and you're supposed to throw him on the ground 3 times to hurt him. And if you throw him off the edge, he jumps back up. What he used to do is he used to pick him up and then try and walk him all the way down the whole spiral, which would take like a solid half an hour just because he walks so slowly. And then just seeing that he jumps all the way back up. But you want to test and push games in your boredom. Like, how do I break it? Like, how do I fucking break it? And I think a lot of the times when I'm streaming and I get impatient, I'm like, I just want to get through this. I like find ways of cheesing games. You know what I mean? It's like, actually, like, since I never do things, this is a weird thing that's coming to my head. Since I never do things properly in games when I'm streaming, sometimes if it's been like 4 hours, I'm like, I don't care. I'll figure out a way. It's like, actually, if I move 3 centimeters to the right, crouch, and then like just peek out my sword, he can't hit me for some reason. You'll find these like find these little zones where you're invincible or whatever, and you can like cheese it. And I fucking Dead Rising's a great game for that. I love cheesing. It's like, oh, actually, if you get a hockey stick, shoot it at the roof, crouch 3 times, and you know what I mean. Like, you'll just figure out some weird fucking shit to do.
It's such a nice thing to do though. It's such a cool way to play games as well, especially if you know a game back to front. Another one I can remember just being bored and playing an awful lot of was Super Mario Bros on the NES, and I can remember the likes of the second level, because we were talking about in the last episode, we were talking about best boss battles, and we're talking about how, say, in arcade games, a lot of people would have only played the first level of a lot of arcade games because you can't get past it. But I remember it's similar for me in the NES, because I was just, as a kid, and NES games are notoriously difficult. I'd only play the first few levels over and over and over. And I remember in Super Mario Bros. In the NES, the second level you go down into the like underground level, and there's just blocks everywhere, and I can remember just trying to break every single block. But there's obviously a timer that counts you down. I think you start at like 399 seconds or something. But trying to break every single box and see if that's breakable, just for no reason other than I'm bored. I want to see if I can break these boxes. And then in Super Mario 64, I can remember just, the way he can tiptoe, if you just slightly move it forward.
Yeah.
I can remember just like walking around the like whole world and tiptoeing and just walking. That's it. I was just like, I'm going to go for a little walk.
Yeah,
I'm just going to go, just going to go for a little walk around and see what I can find. And just like searching all different areas. Again, looking for little secrets, stuff like that. And then also the race. So, when you go in Super Mario 64 and you go up to the right-hand side and there's the 3 pictures of Peach and you jump into the picture on the right and you go down the slide. And I think the fastest is it like for any normal person is around like 19 to 21 seconds or something.
So I think
unless you know like
you get
cool
21 seconds, you get a star, and if you get under 21 seconds, you get a secret star.
Right, yeah. But like, what's the lowest? Like, I could never. Like, I can remember doing that race just over and over and over, and it's only like 20, like you're saying, 20 seconds. How many times would we have done it? Like, but just out of boredom, just going.
Yeah, I wonder what is the record for that, because I'm sure like I think you can jump off the top slide and land on the bottom one as well. Do you know what I mean? And
something
stuff like that.
Yeah. But just doing stuff like that, man, was
a
wonderful thing.
Back to the sadistic side of thing, torturing that penguin in the ice level of Mario 64. And goes, wah, wah. And you're like, I'll fucking throw you off the edge. So funny today, actually. There's a part, I picked up that penguin trying to get that star today, and when I jumped, there's a part where there's like a rickety elevator on that snow level that brings you up from the top to the bottom. Yeah. And there's a gap, there's a big gap there you can fall through. Generally, if you actually high jump off that, Mario does like this flip and he glides. You can actually glide over it. But I had the penguin in my hand, and he automatically did his fucking Cirque du Soleil backflip with the penguin in his hand and yeeted him fucking off the map entirely while he glided back down to the floor. None of my control now. I just long jumped off and he went, whoa! Fucked the penguin away and he went, yahoo! And like absolutely murdered him.
Like, man, like how it's things like that lead to the likes of the BLJ, the backwards long jump, the front, in Super Mario 64 or Mario 64 speedrun, there's the, what is it called, the backwards long jump that you do up the steps. Like, how the fuck is someone gonna figure that out unless they are just fucking around, they're bored.
And they find something that happens by accident, and then they try and recreate it till they find like an art form for it, basically.
Like glitching, actually glitching and breaking games would have been something that would purely have come out of boredom.
Yeah, totally. Like, I think
because
most
you're like,
people,
I have done everything.
Yeah, like there's so many of them. Like even in Gears of War, I remember there's like, just even by accident once or twice, like you normally have to stop and pick up a weapon in multiplayer, and like finding glitches in multiplayer is huge because it's a massive advantage. But I remember I used to put so many hundreds and thousands of hours into that game. Eventually I figured out a way, if I like pressed both analogs up and down at the same time while sliding and pressing X, that I'd pick up the weapon without having to stop to pick it up. So you would just go like, you just slide past it and you'd have it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just shit like that like you've played something for way too long, and like something that's completely nonsensical that might as well be like some fucking seance to like summon a devil or something to fucking get that thing done, do you know?
Another one I can remember is in GoldenEye, putting on the paintball mode and just trying to write your name on the wall. Do you remember that?
I used to do that in all games where the bullet marks used to leave it. I remember actually there was a guy I was playing co-op online with in the first Gears of War, and we used to write to each other by shooting the wall because we didn't have any comms.
No way.
So I'd be like hi, so I'd shoot hi on the wall and he'd write hi back. You know what I mean? Which is really cool.
Man, that's so fucking cool.
I feel like I did a lot of board shit in the original, like Halo 2. Like I think I spent a lot of time. That's so much fucking free time. Man, like it's so weird because now I struggle to enjoy my free time because it's like I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something, or I feel like, like sometimes it's hard to get into the art of being bored. And like sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes I do get like bored or whatever, could be a case like Emma's working for a weekend and I'm kind of chilling out, but I don't want to do anything either, but then I feel like it should be. It's like it's a hard balance,
It's because you're constantly on the go and you're constantly working. And especially for someone in your position where you're constantly creating, like I'd imagine it's very easy for you to just basically be working all day, because you can be working on your phone, you can go home, you pick up your phone, you could be creating images, like stills, you're thinking up of ideas. I can imagine you could get you could really run away with your work and then be like, fuck, I've been sitting here for 10 hours creating stuff and not switching off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think
so
as well,
I'd imagine that's why you're trying to find the sweet spots for you might be a bit of a well, that's just me thinking about it that way. I don't know.
I think you're right, and I think as well, it's like you're kind of thinking too. It's like when you're self-employed as well. It's like shit. You're like, time doesn't equate to money necessarily in this gig. Do you know what I mean? Like you could work an hour and you could make loads. You work 10 hours, you make nothing. Do you know what I mean? So it's like there's a very interesting kind of like, oh, should I be doing something now, or should I be working on this? And also, it's a model that's always moving. Like, you know what I mean? Like streaming's changing all the time. Content creating is changing all the time. It moves at such a fast pace, and there's different things to be doing, or there's a new game that comes out today. Do you want to be the first person on it? Do you know, like there's kind of like there's definitely different avenues of that definitely kind of keep your kind of brain going. But then sometimes I can, like, if I take a few days off, it all starts to seem kind of smaller all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Like if I take if I can get into the routine of having a break and kind of, getting a little bit more bored, it's kind of like a treadmill. When you're on it, you want to keep going. When you come off it, it's hard to get back on it.
You know what I found with regards to my own recent experience of being bored was because I had like weeks and weeks or months and months of just non-stop, constant things to do, places to go, people to see. And then after, I think last week, I was like, right, I had like, a nice weekend free. And what I did to totally kind of unplug myself from the matrix was I removed like any social medias off my phone and stuff like that. So I didn't have any, like the only two kind of social medias I use are Instagram mainly and Twitter, just to browse like video game news and stuff. But what I did was because I have an iPhone, so the way it just it moves an app up. So like back into its place. So an app went back into its place. Just that shopping app, Etsy. And man, I must have opened Etsy about 400 times out of sheer like
habit, muscle
memory.
And
I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, what's wrong with me? Like my brain is
and
so
like
fucked.
I don't spend a huge amount of time on them, but it was the natural of any downtime I had. It was just
you just pick up your phone. Yeah.
Phone
that's the first thing. But this is interesting, right?
Fuck.
So no one, I don't know, I'm sure it's probably obvious, so maybe not obvious either. So like your phone is literally a soother. Your phone is the same thing as like having a dummy in your mouth. Like the second you feel uncomfortable in an elevator, the second you're around some space and you start to feel a slight bit of anxiety, the second you feel uncomfortable in your own skin around someone, or you're in a group of people and you don't know what to say anymore, you grab your phone as your soother. It's the thing that, it's the same thing as like grabbing a drink. It's like it's the first thing you grab as like, oh, I'll look at this will kind of get me into the world, or like whatever it is. And it's also at the same time then the cause of all the anxiety too. So it's like, it's like any addiction, and like, make no mistake, we're all addicted to our phones. Do you know what I mean? And it's really interesting because like that is like because also my biggest anxiety is the fact that anyone can contact me at all. Do you know what I mean? Like a part of me was like, I remember I was in my earlier 20s, and I remember I like lost my phone or something on a night out. So I just started using an iPad, but the iPad meant that I would just go on it every so often to check if anyone really needed me. And then I had no bullshit text. Like, the way like there'd be like, fucking, you could be texting 50 people a day, just, hey, how are you? And like that feels overwhelming in itself sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's very, very interesting, I think.
It is. And what I found since having removed them from my phone is and it sounds very cheesy and cliche, and I promise you I'm not trying to be, but I find it difficult to explain it any other way, is that I'm just a little bit more present.
Mhm.
I'm not just in my own head thinking all the time. I'm just able to like sit down. Now I'm pretty good with sitting down and watching movies, not looking at my phone. You know, I literally will put my phone
Yeah,
like
yeah,
under
yeah.
a pillow. It can't be in my pocket. It can't be in my line of sight. I don't like to do it.
Mhm.
But even like say watching TV shows or playing games, I'm less the last like say week or two or whatever long it's been since I've removed them. I'm more focused on what I'm
Mhm.
doing.
Yeah, which
And
means you're more
less
present and
Yes,
think you,
and
you
less
don't have the option
distracted.
to run away. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I know
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a weird example, but it's the same thing as like, you know, like if you can't run to grab a drink, like, do you know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
can't soothe yourself
Mhm.
with it, so you have to kind of just be present, and you just kind of have to fucking deal with what you're dealing with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Like it's so funny too
And
because I
ano-
think everyone has that thing with their partners too, where it's like, I feel like this is such a universal experience where it's like the hypocrisy of put your phone away. Do you know what I mean? It's like someone could have been on their phone for 2 hours and then you pick up yours and they'd be like, you're always on your phone, or like vice versa. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that
yeah,
classic,
yeah.
like, and it's just everyone's like, no, you're always on your phone. It's like, no, you're always on your phone. Or like the second someone
Yeah.
puts away their phone and they're ready, they're like, right, what do we do? So, do you know what I mean? Or like,
Yeah.
it's like,
yeah.
oh, it's just such a funny thing. Like me and Emma sometimes like will be like fucking just making sure both of us like, no, we're watching the show. Let's just watch the show.
Yeah.
No, put it away. I put it away. Put them down. We're putting them down. You know what I mean? Like you're being like, for fuck's sake.
I remember being away a weekend away, and there was a good few of us. This was years and years ago, man. And you know, my friends are really good for when we go out of not phoning up. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like a lot of them aren't.
Yeah,
even
ours
on
would be
social
too. I'd
media.
say, yeah.
But I remember going away for this one weekend, and I remember sitting in a pub, and there was like about 10 of us, and I think I was the only person with my head up and not my head down, looking into my lap. And I don't know if it was just a momentary thing, and I was like, what the fuck? And I said something, and I remember someone being really rude to me and saying, okay, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, I'm just trying to, like, we're on a fucking weekend away here. Do you know what I mean? I just want to have a conversation. I don't want to be
Yeah.
attacked for wanting to talk to my fucking friends
Like,
here.
I could just like, yeah, like it's like we could all fucking have a wank in a bathroom on our own at home. Like it's not what we're doing right now. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, kind of want to have some human connection and interaction.
Yeah, yeah. But what I also found for myself was the dreaded doom scrolling, man. The dreaded
Yeah.
doom scrolling has gotten me an awful lot the last while. And when I removed it, like just like now, to be fair, right, I love going to bed early. You know,
Yeah,
fairly
yeah,
good
yeah.
at going to, like, I'll go to bed at like
But then
once
but
my
you
daughter
but you
goes
almost
to
go to
bed, I
bed
could be in
early
bed
so
at
you can
7
have some
o'clock.
doom scrolling time without it being too late. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, well that a little bit of that, but I like to go to bed and I'll just put on like a soothing YouTube video and just fall asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I could go to bed at like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I'll fall asleep. I'll fall asleep at about that time. But I found myself with doom scrolling and being up until like midnight, and I was just like, what am I fucking doing? And then the last, however long it's been, the last few days, whatever, just, man, the difference in sleeping and stuff like that. And I don't want this podcast to be about how phones are bad, because I love my phone and it's great, and I love social media and it's great, but it's just mad when, and again, I consider myself to have a pretty good relationship with my phone, but then I realise, well, maybe I don't. And it's just funny how these things can creep in, and then it's like, well, now I'm getting these feelings of being bored again, and it's just so, it's too much for me to be able to comprehend fully the impact the likes of mobile phones and stuff have.
But I
have
think
had
you
on me.
can talk about it in the sense that, like, if you're never bored, you're never going to change. It's the same when we talked about having Netflix actually does the opposite. You know, we keep using this example. You know, you go to a video store, you buy something, you have to watch it, you expand your palettes and horizons. If you're never bored, you never expand your palettes and horizons. Like, if you were never bored, you'd never watch Dragon Ball Z. If you were never, like, you know, like this, like, you need to be bored enough that you're going to try this new thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, if you're never bored, you're never going to evolve and change as a person. Like, it's fun. It's so fundamental to creating. If I was never bored, I would never have streamed. I would have never, like, you know, like, there's so many different, like, you know what I mean? Like, you need to have that real, like, what the fuck am I going to do? Like, and sometimes when you're bored, you're like, I don't want to do anything. And then you fight that for a while and you kind of go through, like, I'm not doing any, you know, like, you kind of, it's like wrestling with yourself. It's like wrestling with not want to try something new. Everyone has that thing where, like, I don't want to start a new show because it takes too much effort. Do you know that, like, I don't, like, you can't,
yeah.
like, I can't, like, oh, like, you're like, are we in the mood to start a new show? And you're never fucking in the mood. You're like, I think I'll be in the mood now at an earlier night or something like that. I'll be more in the mood to watch that new show then. And you fucking never are. You just have to fucking force yourself to watch the first 15 minutes till you get into it. You have to force yourself to sit down and shove your face against something, or fucking force yourself to do something.
Do you know what I think is funny? Like, and exactly what you were saying is, I'll be afraid to try a new show, right? Because I'm like, it's fucking 18 episodes. I can't. And in the last year, how many hundreds of episodes of Dragon Ball Z have I watched in a year? Like about 500 episodes or something like that.
And you know the feeling.
I don't think about that. I'm just like, I don't care. I'm in it. I'm watching it.
Yeah. But that's the thing. You know the feeling when you like. I think this is just life in general. Like, you just have to be so bored and so fucking wanting to, like, fucking, I don't know, like, you can just feel it now. It's like that. Like, you're almost like pissed off. You're like, I don't want to do anything. There's loads of things I could be doing. I don't want to do that. You just have to fucking do it. And you know, then when you like get hooked on the thing, you're like, it's the best feeling then, because you're like, all of a sudden you're like, I have 18 episodes to watch in bed till 4 a.m. I'm gonna fuck my life up. Oh my god.
I was just thinking, like, do you ever get when you're bored and you're like, well, actually, one thing I think that's leads to a lot of goodness with regards to boredom and creativity is if you're into music. Like, do you ever just pick up your guitar? Like, I'll be bored and I'll just walk in because I have my bass hanging up in the front room, and I'll just take the bass off the wall, and then all of a sudden you could be sitting there for like 40 minutes. You're like, actually, you just get the urge to look up the tabs for this song, and you're like, fucking yeah. And then you're watching YouTube video and you're playing it, like, fucking
yeah, you get really into it. Yeah, I get that a lot.
But like, imagine that's how a lot of the greatest fucking musicians in the world probably came about, from just being like, well, I've nothing else to do. I'm just gonna sit here and play this guitar for 25 hours of the day.
Totally.
But one thing I love about, if I ever get bored, and I'm very lucky where I live that I can just get up and go for a nice walk. Like, this is a realization that I came to recently. When I was at the Irish Gamer Market recently, which was very, very cool, and I did a panel, and funny enough, it was about content creation.
Yeah, tell me about that. Actually, I'm very curious.
Well, the event itself, it's the third one I've been to, the Irish Game Market, and it was absolutely amazing. I would highly recommend anyone who's into video games to go. It's just loads and loads of people selling video games, and everyone was so nice. Harry came with us, so a past guest of the podcast, Harry Kay, came over to Ireland and stayed over here for a few days, and me and him went together and had a great time. And then we did a panel. It was hosted by Shadow Doiler, which is Aaron, and then there was myself and a streamer called Cake Jumper, and then a YouTuber, Big Yellow Silly, and they're very, very cool. They were very, very cool people. I found myself just laughing, just sitting there laughing, listening to them talking. Like, they were just really nice. It's really nice when you get up on a panel with people that you don't know, and just I felt like very, very comfortable, even though there was, like an audience of people sitting there watching me or watching us talk, and it was really cool. It was really interesting, and it was just talking about what each person likes to create, about what got them into creating, what they do.
Tell me, I want to know your answers.
Instagram. Well, mine, podcasting. I talked about podcasting, man. I mentioned you up on stage.
What? Did you say
spreading
Keith?
the love of steamy streamers? Yeah,
did you
of course
say your
I did,
partner?
man.
Did you say your lover? What did you say?
I said all those things, man. Of course.
Tell me in deep graphic detail. But
it was really fun, man. It really, really was. And the other guests on were so cool. Like, I'd have to give a shout out to both Cake Jumper and Big Yellow Silly, because they were so nice to chat to. And I thought it was really funny how Big Yellow Silly was talking about how they make videos on YouTube. And like, one of the videos is like a 40-minute in-depth documentary style video on a piece of brown Lego and a piece of yellow Lego. And it was like, a really niche, specific thing that they love doing and creating. I was like,
that's how you break an
fucking
algorithm.
love that shit. I fucking love that shit, man. And then Cake Jumper streams an awful lot, and they're just really, Really cool, really funny. Does a lot of what would you say, like scuffed games like you. So she was talking about playing the like Zelda games on the CDOs, the Panasonic CDO, you know, like cursed games.
Yeah.
Even afterwards, Harry was like, I feel like Keith and Cake Jumper will get along really well. They seem like there's a very similar vibe there from the like style of games we were playing. And then like we were talking about like, you know, what games you love playing as a kid, like Pokemon and our kind of comfort games and that kind of thing. But it was really cool. And then I ended up going over. I didn't realise, but I think we ended up going like over the time, like about 20 minutes or so, because we were all just chatting and having
you're
a bit
all
of
just
fun.
engrossed. That's what you want.
Yeah, man, it was just so nice, man. It was really, really cool. But again, and I know I've given a shout out to this event before, but I couldn't recommend the Irish Game Market enough. Because it was really cool. And you know, I saw Kieran buzz to be there, and I thought it was really nice because obviously Kieran works with Gamerfest, and it's nice to see people from two conventions not trying to like, well, now this is just from what I thought, but you know, he's obviously there showing support at that event, and it means that they're like working together, you know, to uplift gaming events in Ireland, which, well, again, that's just an assumption I'm making.
And
but,
then we find out later there's like a whole documentary on like Irish gaming market versus Gamerfest, worse than Blur and Oasis. Do you know what I mean? Like something
Blur and Oasis, man. Oh, but man, can I just say, right? Obviously, we had the legend. You got to meet up with Harry. I got to meet up with Harry. It was very, very cool. But and I can see that beautiful for listeners at home. Keith at the moment has a CRT TV set up in his background of his studio, and he has videos playing constantly. He has like a 3-hour marathon that he's taped from Cartoon Network, I think it is, of like different Dragon Ball episodes.
15 hours, I'd say.
Oh man, it's so
On
cool.
several different
And
days.
didn't Harry hook you up with that CRT? And did Laser Steak Ben give you that video machine?
Yeah, so very lucky boy.
See, the fucking community, man, it's fucking glorious. But Harry brought me over some magazines. But what he also brought me over, Keith, was the Street Fighter 2 official sticker book from the early 90s. And like I remember, I mentioned this story before about how when one of my siblings was being born and I was staying in my granny's for a few days, and my I can't remember if it was my younger sister or my younger brother, but their dad came over and brought me a full box. Like you go to the shop, you don't buy a packet of stickers, or he got a full box of Street Fighter 2 sticker book stickers. And I can remember just sitting at the dinner table in my granny's opening up those stickers. But man, Harry brought me that as a gift, and it was
The book,
it
is it?
blew me away, man. Yeah, the sticker
And
book.
do you still have the stickers? Hardly, no.
I don't have any stickers, but there's stickers in it. But I'm gonna try and complete the book because me and Harry are actually working on the Pokemon sticker book from the 90s as well. So we both bought a sticker book off, you know, Retro Ralph, one of the video game vendors that does be at the video game conventions, and we bought sticker books off her, Amy. And we're gonna try and complete those sticker books, but I'm now
be savage.
gonna try and do the Street Fighter, and that's a real old school thing, man, isn't it? And that's a real chilled. Like I found myself the other day when I was a little bit bored, I picked up the Street Fighter 2 sticker book and I was just reading through it.
Yeah.
Like,
that, oh my god, like reading the back of cereal boxes, or when you're in the bathroom taking a shit and you used to read like
you
the
don't
soap
have your
ingredients.
phone and you read
there was no phone, and it was like, man, reading stuff while taking a shit was the greatest pleasure known to man for some reason. But also the
That
cereal
has to
boxes, like what is it about? Like, because eating like stimulates one part of the brain that keeps you happy. Where like normally, if you ask me to read something, it would be like pulling teeth from a fucking I don't know what. But like, but then when you're eating, it's like so entertaining for some reason. You know, like my ADHD brain is like, I can focus on this now because I'm eating.
Yeah. But
doodling and sketching as well was like, you know, you just draw on shit. You just fucking draw, like scribble nonsense.
I think doodling 100% is a big one. Reading the cereal box and like reading the back of the shampoo bottle while you're sitting on the toilet has to be like something that almost everyone who has ever sat in a toilet has done at some point or another.
God, I love it. I remember doing my homework and my mum used to be like fucking crazy with homework. She used to like watch me do it all the time. So I was like, fuck, when I used to go to the toilet and just like that was my reprieve. So I'd be like taking the longest shit of my life while like reading like, if you want luscious curls and a soft, smooth, healthy hair. Do you know what I mean? Like, while avoiding going back to the table to be fucking...
Yeah.
To where I had the usual experience where generally by the end of the night there'd be tears somewhere around the kitchen table. Someone would be crying because like you realise like you're both screaming at each other for so long that you did the whole fucking homework assignment completely wrong. Do you know what I mean? You like have to do it again.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh man, I fucking. Do you know what, man? Like, me and you have discussed doing this episode for so long, and I'm so glad we finally have, because to give people a bit of background, we planned to come into this episode with a clean slate, because it plays into that I'm bored of nothing to do. It's like even though we have like about 70 episode ideas, we're like, we want to do this one. And I've really enjoyed the conversation and like the bringing back of stuff and the thinking back of what did I used to just fuck around in a video game and just try and drive backwards around a course and Diddy Kong Racing or something, you know?
Yeah.
Just that kind of shit, man.
There was
You're
stuff
thinking
as
about stuff you did as a kid.
Yeah, like Pilot Wings I used to love to play because there was fuel meters. I used to love fuel meters as a kid. Like or I try and copy like the ghost data in Formula 1 where like I tried to drive exactly like the last time I drove so the ghosts would like align with each other and stuff like that. And my god, like and I recently, just to like tie that up as well, I just found a Christmas tape of me in the year 2000.
Oh man.
When I was like, even maybe 99, when I was like 7 years old, I'd say. And I got 5 Pokemon original decks that I'm opening in there, and I have all the boxes, and I got a CRT, and I got Pokemon VHS tapes, and I was just sitting down, semi kind of bored, but I used to just organize the cards over and over again. I used to stack the boxes on top of the TV. I was into making displays back then. Like, nothing has changed. If you watch those tapes, like, I'm the exact same. I'm like cleaning the TV, making sure it looks nice. Creating my space, because always a big believer too, when you're bored, like your physical space is representative of your internal space. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're kind of organizing or doing whatever. And watching me just like sit down, just kind of like watching Pokemon, you know, like I was lying on the carpet on the floor with the TV just in the corner, just like, you know, just kind of cool. Like, you know, just existing.
Yeah, that's it, man. Oh, to just exist. Just
exist. Yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah.
We should call this podcast I Wish I Could Just Exist. It sounds like a book. Sounds like a book that would sell millions.
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah. Do you think we could do a full episode on rearranging your room?
Yeah, easily.
Is that a... I know I love to do it.
I farted. Did you hear that?
Did you? No,
yeah,
I didn't hear it.
I hope it comes up in the audio. If it does, will you isolate it and turn it up?
I will, yeah.
It's just bap.
But I'd love to do, because it when you're bored, you do shit like that.
Yes.
Like, you go looking in your attic for shit you haven't and you find videos you haven't found in years.
Yeah, that's so satisfying.
You start rearranging your room or tidying your room and changing your setup. And
do you know what the funniest part of that is? Like, when you start arranging and you're like, fuck yeah, so you literally throw your room upside down, and then a quarter way through you lose your energy and will to do it, so you just sit there in a pile of your shit, being like, the bed's upside down, the shelf's moved halfway amongst the room, that takes 3 people to lift it, but you've dragged it, destroyed the floor, pulling it, and you're like, oh fuck, what have I done?
that was me a few weeks ago. Remember, I took everything out of the attic and bought like storage containers to organise my whole collection, and I was sitting there at like 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday night, just like staring at the blinds, just being like, what have I done? Surrounded by fucking shit. Like, oh, I'm in too deep now. I have to stay.
The worst part as well is, you know, when you start doing the lazy man's load, so like there could be a shelf full of stuff and you're like, I can definitely move this without taking the stuff off, and then you pull it and like it fucking all smashes on the floor, it hits you in the head, and you just want to fucking like, you just want to run into a wall and die.
Yeah. Oh, very good, man. I have had so much fun with this episode. I'm so happy we finally decided to do it, because I love episodes that just make you think, you know, like you can plan, say, talking about a game, and I love talking about games, but I think doing like different ones like this is a fun little experiment in a way of doing things. So yeah, man, I really enjoyed it, but I think it's time to wrap it up, and we're gonna afterwards, for anyone who doesn't know, we have our bonus features episode of the podcast, which is available on patreon.com/press any button to continue, where we wind down after each episode, talk about
We don't
what
wind
we think of the
down, we
episode.
wind up. It's the better part. I've literally had people now in the Discord say, don't bother listening to the main show anymore because the Patreon's where it's at. Everyone now who listens to the Patreon is like, why don't you reverse it? Why isn't this piece of crap on the Patreon and the main episode? Because the Patreon episodes are so much better than what we plan out. So make sure you check it out if you want to see the good content. Thank you for suffering through the bad content, and we'll catch you all next week, guys. Love you.
Suffering. Right, I'll leave it there, boy.